Good day, subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Jeremy. This is the Financial Education Channel, and today we're talking about how much money should you spend on a car. I'm going to give you guys 5 steps to keep you in check as far as how much you should actually spend on a car and what some best practices are to save you a lot of money, guys, here. I see so many people buying cars they really should not be buying just because they can get approved for a loan for such and such amount. That, guys, they're way in over their heads on some of these cars these people buy, and it makes me so sad. So basically, because of that whole subject, I felt like I might as well do a video on how much you should actually spend on a car, how much can you actually afford, and kind of stick to these guidelines, and it will help you a lot financially, in my opinion, guys. Hit a thumbs up if you enjoy this video today, and leave me comments in the comments section. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this subject. So let's get into number 1 here, guys. The total of the car should not exceed 1/4 of what your yearly income is. So let's say you make $50,000 a year. That's what the average person makes in America, right? So $50,000 a year. So you should not buy a car, whether it's, secondhand or, used or new or whatever, that's basically going to exceed 1/4 of what that yearly income you make is. So $50,000, let's say you make, so you should not buy a car that's more than $12,500, guys, because that's 1/4. So you need to stay under that $12,500 mark. And that's also after taxes and dealer fees and all those kinds of things. So if you go to a dealer and you're not buying it from just a regular person on the street, you're going to a dealer, you need to make sure that car is probably $9,000 or $10,000 before you go through all the ending process, because taxes are going to get put on, registration fees, all that kind of stuff, guys, get tagged on there at the end. You don't want to exceed that $12,500 number. Now, the reason I put it as that is because another fourth of your income, right, in a year is going to basically go toward taxes, state taxes, federal taxes. So really, if you're making $50,000, you're really only making $37,500, or $38,000, somewhere around there, because that's the money you're actually going to get, back to you and whatnot, because the rest is going to go out to taxes. So that's basically going to make 1/3 of that purchase price basically what that car is. So I would absolutely say you should never spend more than 1/3, after taxes than what you want on that car, because it's crazy to think, people spending as much as they actually make in a year. I see people all the time that maybe make $50K a year. So that means they're really, after taxes, getting about $38K a year. Then they buy a car that's like $40,000, $50,000. You're buying a car that's more money than what you're actually getting in your pocket each year. And you got rent, you got mortgage, you got all these other bills, car insurance, and all this stuff. I'm like, how can you do that? How can you do that? Even if you're doing half, that's still crazy to me. So you need to absolutely make sure that that number is 1/4 at the very max of what your total yearly income is. And that will help put you in perspective of, okay, what can I actually afford for a car? And if you can keep it under 1/4, then that's great. That's phenomenal. But do not go over that 1/4 number, in my opinion, guys. That will save you a lot of money. Number 2 here. Make sure the payments do not exceed 1/3 of what your rent or your mortgage is. Now, if you live at home, basically think about what your parents pay for mortgage. If your parents pay $1,000 a month for mortgage, don't buy a car the payments are going to be more than $333. And if you currently live on your own, let's say you rent an apartment for $800 a month, make sure that that car is not going to exceed maybe $275 a month, the payments. This is another thing I think is crazy. Some people have car payments that are half of what their mortgage or rent is, $500+. I'm like, how could you spend that much money on a car? It's a car. It's meant to get you from point A to point B, to your job and back, or to that restaurant or the mall and back. It's a car. How can you spend that much money on a car? It just puts you in a bad financial position. That money could go towards savings and things like that, guys, or through a lot of other fun things other than just a car. So never try to exceed that 1/3 amount of money as far as what you would actually pay for rent or mortgage. And like I said, if you still live with your parents, try to find out what they pay for their rent or for their mortgage, and then basically take that number and make sure you do not go over 1/3 of what that number is, guys, for that they actually pay for rent or mortgage. Number 3, Check KBB, kellybluebook.com. It's a popular website that's, I would say, is very, very accurate. I would say it's very, very accurate. 95% of the time it's very, very accurate as far as giving you what that price actually is for that car. So before you ever go to buy a car, whether it's from a dealership, whether it's from someone on Craigslist or wherever, eBay, make sure you're punching in all the things into KBB. So punch in what year that car is, what model it is, what mileage it is, what type of condition it is, and see what KBB gives you back for a number. If KBB says that car is worth $10,000, don't go paying $11,000 or $12,000 for that car. Pay $10,000 or less. KBB is very accurate, guys, very, very accurate. So pay attention to that number. Make sure you're typing in everything accurately. If it has a bunch of extra features, and make sure you're putting in those extra features, because you want an accurate number. So when you go to buy that car and go to negotiate for that car, you know what price in your head KBB is at. So then you know what your top is basically at that point, guys. So pay attention to KBB, do your research before you buy that car, and then you'll have a very good understanding of what you should actually pay for that car and what's a good price for getting that car, not what based upon what somebody else says or a friend says or what the dealer says or what that person from Craigslist says. Oh yeah, you're getting such a good deal. What's KBB say? Does KBB say you're really getting a good deal, or are you getting jacked on that car, guys? So pay attention to KBB. I absolutely recommend that site to anybody looking to buy a used car, guys, or a new car for that matter. Number 4, make sure your interest rate is under 10%. If you can't afford an interest rate of, if you can't get approved for an interest rate under 10%, then don't get the car. Buy a used car, just cash, a junker, whatever. So many times I see people get a car that's got an interest rate of, 15, 20, even 25%. That's just absurd, guys. That's just absurd. Run the numbers. Run the numbers on a calculator. Go to Google and run the numbers on, a calculator that's basically the interest calculator for car payment. Type that in Google and run numbers. Say, okay, if I bought a $20,000 car, I got a 7-year loan on that, and I paid an interest rate of, let's say, 20%, you can see what the real cost of that car is, and it's just like mind-blowing. Like, that car would cost me that much money. So make sure that interest rate is not over 10%. If it's over 10%, then don't do it. And I know you could even say, well, Jeremy, they should really do 4%, 5% or something like that. I know that's unrealistic for a lot of people out there. So under 10% is safe. Yeah, it would be better to have a 4% loan or a 3% loan versus a 9 or an 8% loan, but you got to be realistic. I got to be realistic with you guys. And if you're under 10%, that's not the worst thing in the world. You want to try to be lower and maybe refinance in the future, once you made your payments and your credit gets built up a little bit, and then you can always refinance. But don't go get a 15, 20, 25% interest loan, guys. That's just absurd, because even when you refinance, you're not going to bring it down a ton. Maybe you bring it down from a 20% to a 17 or 16%. That's still ridiculously high, guys. So don't get an interest rate over 10% when you buy that car if you're buying it from a dealership or buying it on a loan. Number 4 here, guys, number 5, we're on the last one here. Negotiate the price. Now, make sure you don't go over your best and final, and don't be afraid to leave the situation. So before you go in there, you need to have a best and final price in your head. You never let that price get known unless it's absolutely necessary at the very end. So, like I said, do your research on kbb.com. Then before you even go into that dealership, or before you even go to that person on Craigslist or eBay or whatever and go to see them in person, have that best and final number in your head. Maybe it's $10,000. Know it's $10,000. And then when you go to negotiate the price, don't start at the $10,000. At the same time, don't disrespect them with a price that's just absurd, because then what you risk losing the entire deal because you gave them such a ridiculous price. Because if you're going to see that car, you want that car, ultimately you do want that car, but you want it for the right price. So say you're going in there, it's $10,000 is your best and final. You got that in your head. You may want to start with an $8,000, an $8,500 first bid price, and that's where you start, and then they can come and work with you and whatnot. Maybe they take that price. That'd be awesome. Probably not going to take that price. They're probably going to, bid with you and whatnot. And then if you get to your negotiation, you're on your 3rd or 4th bid, kind of back and forth, you can say, okay, you know what, best and final, $10,000, take it or leave it. And hopefully you get it for a better price than that. You want to negotiate your way through that. Make sure you know why they want to get rid of it and those kinds of things. Don't be afraid to leave. If they're not coming down to your price, don't be afraid to walk away, guys. There's a million different cars out there. Yeah, you might want that one, but at the end of the day, it's just a car. Do not be afraid to leave, guys. Whether it's a dealership, don't get pressured by them. They won't come to your price, Hey, you know what? I appreciate it. I'm going to think about this some more. I'm going to take off now. There's no point in going back and forth anymore because you're not coming to my price. So make sure you know how to negotiate when you go in there. Make sure you have a best and final price. Don't go a dime over that best and final price because that is your best and final, guys. Stick to your guns. Don't disrespect them with such a low ball offer because what you do sometimes, you can start, that can sometimes backfire on you huge. I'll give you an example real quick here. I bought a Nissan Versa back in 2014, and I actually traded in a 350Z, which I owned at that time. I know you can say 350Z to a Nissan Versa, that's not very cool. I know, I had a kid and whatnot, so I had to do it. So basically, the trade-in value I wanted for that car was about $9,000. They came back to me and they said they would give me $5,000 for that car. I was so disrespected that I was like, in my head, I was like, screw you guys now. I ended up getting $10,000 for that. I fought for that $10,000 and I was willing to walk away from the deal. But they had gotten me so going on, I felt so disrespected by them giving me that $5,000 number. And it was so far off. I felt like it was such a disrespectful number that now you challenged me as a man. So now we're gonna go ahead and go back and forth on this. So I ended up going $1,000 higher than I originally was. If they would have gave me a realistic offer, like say $7,000 or $7,500, we would have negotiated back and forth, and we would have ended up at $9,000. But because I felt disrespected by them, and it was so absurd, $5,000, I ended up getting $10,000 trade-in value for that car. So I ended up making out even better than what I really wanted to. So don't ever try to disrespect someone with a lowball offer. A lot of people try to say when you negotiate, give them such a low offer, it just blows them away. Don't do that, guys, in my opinion. I think it's a really bad way to negotiate because you're just going to get the other person fired up and either, not even take you seriously at that point. You're going to lose a lot of credibility with a lot of people. Maybe you can get lucky and somehow they take it, but give me a break. Unless you're getting someone very ignorant, they're not going to take that price or anything even close to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video today on basically how much you should spend on a car and some best practices when you actually go to buy that car, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Hit that thumbs up button if you did. Comment if you liked this video today or if you have any questions on these kinds of things, guys. If you came across this video and are not subscribed yet, you may want to. I talk personal finance on the channel. This is a personal finance video. I'm an entrepreneur and business owner. I give away a lot of my business tips, and we also talk the stock market the most on this channel, how to be a successful investor. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a great day.